Yo, everyone, welcome back. Brand new Techish in the building. It's me, Michael Behane, and I'm joined again with Dominic of TechCrunch. How you doing, Dominic?
Hello.
Hello, yeah. Dominic really has blessed us this episode because she's come through with some unique insights from her Substack, the Black Cat. Break it down. What's been happening with Black founders and what's the picture looking like? Because I don't think it's looking good, but I think you've got more insight in terms of actual numbers.
Yes, well, yeah, it's not looking good. I have the latest numbers from Crunchbase, and they're not surprising. Like no one's surprised. I was just looking for the H1 numbers. So basically, how much funding did Black founders get in the first 2 quarters of the year? And found that, or Crunchbase found that the H1 numbers for the percentage of capital raised by Black founders is at 0.32%, which
Oh
is a
my God.
decrease from the 0.73 raised last H1 and the 1.30% raised in H1 2022. It was interesting because I was talking to the analysts at Crunchbase, and she said this really, really interesting quote that, while the AI funding boom has been beneficial for female founders, the same cannot be said for Black founders. And
Mm.
there's no indicators in the data that things will improve anytime soon.
Wow, that's so depressing. And I almost feel like the industry, since it's kind of, well, the VCs anyway have kind of pivoted towards Trump. It's almost like we don't even care anymore. Whereas when the numbers were bad in the previous years, there was probably some sort of like, outpouring of we need to do better. But now I think everyone's gone full MAGA in the VC industry and they're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
mask off. We don't give a shit, basically. So depressing. What's your thoughts on the kind of VC pivot towards Trump MAGA? Started off probably with the All In podcast, then Andreessen and Horowitz have kind of, declared their allegiances to Senior Trump. What's your thoughts about it all?
Some people were not surprising to see them pledge their allegiance for Trump. I think like what was more surprising was seeing just how many people stood up to reject that and say like you
Mm.
don't get to speak for us. And actually, like five really rich billionaires don't get to just, have the final say on who the industry is backing. And I think, what's been really refreshing to actually see is VC for Kamala's pop up,
Mm.
which I think has over 700 people who have signed on right now, and they think they raised like $175,000 so far. And
Oh,
that is something that's really interesting because it's basically all these people, like a lot of people are afraid to stand up to billionaires, especially the big ones, especially the ones that, control the capital and how it flows in the industry. And so to see all of these people come together and say, well, actually, we're not one issue voters. We're worried about so many other things aside from, like crypto or like taxes and stuff has really, I think it was either the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal that said that it was, Silicon Valley versus Silicon Valley right now. And that
mm.
is thing that's going to continue even after the US election is over.
So you had a great article actually where you were looking into Ben Horowitz. So Ben Horowitz, VC, former founder, wrote a book called The Hard Things About Hard Things, which is super recommended by a lot of like startup founders. But one thing that's interesting about him is that he's like been so hip hop adjacent. Like he loves hip hop. In his book, he's got hip hop quotations. He's always talking about how much he loves Nas. He's like tried to get, other kind of MCs and hip hop artists to kind of invest alongside him. But him going towards Trump kind of caused a bit more backlash because, you're trying to claim alignment with Black culture, but at the same time, you're voting against essentially Black interests or where the majority of Black people are voting. What what was the backlash to that article that you published? Because it looked like it was heavy. I can't lie. From just looking at it from my from the safety of my home.
Yeah, I know. I'm not on, I occasionally go on Twitter, like tweet stuff, and I'm in Interview for Vampire Twitter. Like I don't really, like I'm on Stan
Love it.
Twitter. And so, yeah, there was backlash. I mean, the story said some Black people, not all, like it did catch some Black people off guard. And they have valid reasons to feel that way.
Yeah.
And all I did was report the facts on what people were feeling. And if people have an issue with the story, look at the facts. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? It's funny how you mentioned Twitter and not spending that much time on there. Like I said this on TikTok and I said, you know what? I think if Twitter was invented today, or maybe let's say it was a year old as a startup and it had the same users, the exact same content, I think we would look at it as like Elon's Truth Social and that we are bringing so much of Twitter's legacy to it and saying like, oh, this is this great platform. But actually, it really is basically Elon's Truth Social. He rambles on there. He gives himself the maximum distribution. He'll be commenting under like white supremacists talking about, oh, interesting, great point. And then it'll be like full of OF bots and whatever, right? And I think we need to just step away and just divorce ourselves from the legacy of what was built by kind of Jack and whatnot. Because it's like, it's a whole different product now. It literally is just Truth Social 2.0 for Elon. So I'm thinking about just deleting my account pretty soon anyway. So yeah, shout out to X. Actually, speaking of X, actually, I don't know if you had a chance to read up on it, but basically X is now trying to sue advertisers over a supposed boycott. So
yeah.
So what's your thoughts on this lawsuit? Because I don't know how you can sue someone for not spending money with you. That's basically what it is, right?
Well, I mean, Black founders know this very well. People do not have to give you money. And Elon is upset that these, really big ad agency firms, which he told to like, go off, like to F off, right? He told them that. And they did. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how he can win this. Because I think I was reading in one of the articles, Unilever, I believe, or someone, the president of that said that like, you don't control our ad dollars. Like we don't 100%. Have to give you money. And I just think it's really interesting because you brought up about like the rise and, all the right wing content on X right now. And even in the media publishing space, we see it sometimes, or some stories that, people are writing. I think at my last publication, it was like a thing where some of the stories we're writing, the heavy Trump runs, some advertisers are like, hey, I don't want my stuff next to all of this all the time. These are conversations that the publishing outlets go through. And so, outlets are saying, hey, we don't want to be around all these right-wing trolls, all of this content that's really scary. And I mean, you cannot control that. I'm intrigued to see what happens with this suit because I don't know. I mean, the whole X under Elon's reign has been just, I don't even know the right word to use, disastrous.
Yeah, basically.
So I don't know how he's going to get advertised. I don't know how this is going to work.
Yeah. So the advertisement revenue has steadily declined since he took over. And obviously everyone loves freedom of speech until it kind of goes against him. So he's talking about freedom of speech, but what about the freedom of companies not to advertise on your platform? And the reality is a lot of these kind of like right-wing people types, they always look at what Twitter was before as like, oh, this is some giant left-wing conspiracy, but actually brands don't want their content against things that's not brand safe. So when you want to go all in and say, we're going to let Nazis just say what they want and anonymous Nazis say what they want, you think Disney wants to be near that? And then you're shocked and surprised when they pull out after you told them to F off. And then at the same time, you want to sue them? Yeah, it's insane. I mean, he's a petulant child, man. And it's insane. His fall off is in terms of like public perception, it's crazy. Like the fall off. Anyways, you know what else has interested me actually? So what's your thoughts on the DEI candidate for president? I'm joking, I'm playing, but like what this perception that Kamala Harris is a DEI
so
candidate
funny
is so insane. Like what's like, how do you feel about that as an American who's probably going to vote? Like, what do you like? How do you feel
so
about
funny. I mean, because they call me TechCrunch's DEI hire, and they've been calling me that. They've been calling me that since I was hired like 2.5 years ago.
Damn.
It's always funny. They're always trying to find new ways to call someone Black, and
Basically.
this is the new word that they picked, DEI candidate. It's a whistle dog. It's a whistleblower term. Like it's not like that's what that is. And I think 100%. Everyone has started to see it, especially after Donald Trump went to the National Association of Black Journalists conference a few weeks ago in Chicago and did that whole thing of like, I didn't know Kamala was Black. She was Indian, before, especially since he said that. I think it's painted a very clear picture in terms of what people mean when they say like DEI or when they bring up race against Kamala. I think that a lot of people were also very prepared for this, or at least like Kamala supporters were very, very prepared for this because this is just something that they always do. They always bring up race and they always use it to scare people, to spook people. And I do think that the other side was actually quite prepared for the whole DEI candidate thing.
100%. And it's like, if you're going to say that a DEI candidate is somebody who's hired because of their race or gender, then we're going to have to say that Joe Biden was a DEI candidate when Obama ran for president, because literally Obama was running and they were like, we don't want to scare these white people, so we need to get an old white guy next to him. That was why Joe Biden was the VP. It wasn't because of his charisma. Do you get what I'm saying? Same with Tim Walz. Tim Walz, like, we've got a black woman running. We don't want to scare white people, so we need to get an old white man, the oldest, whitest man that we can get. That's a DEI candidate, but it's only applied to black people.
even Trump's VC pick, JD
Yeah,
Vance, they called
yeah.
him a DEI pick for, I guess, on socioeconomic levels. I'm really curious. Do you guys have DEI candidates over there? Like, did anyone look at like? Do people look at your politicians? I'm thinking of like Rishi or I don't know. Any of
This
them
is
say like, oh yeah, that's a DEI pick.
the irony is that a lot of our kind of POC politicians in the UK are conservative, so it doesn't really get put on them because they are actually essentially the black and brown face parroting the kind of white supremacist talking point. So they go up there and they say, we don't want no more woke stuff in the school. We don't want more, like, as in they are actually saying what you might hear a Candace Owens saying, but they're saying it from Parliament, basically. So no one's really been accused in the political establishment of being a quote unquote DEI candidate. But we definitely do have a lot of the same rhetoric about, oh, wokeness has gone too far. They're brainwashing our kids, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's complete nonsense, man. But do you think Kamala's got a chance then? So it's such a weird world because it was like 3 weeks ago, and I think even on the podcast, I was like, it was over after Trump
It was
survived the
over.
shooting. I was like, it's done.
No,
Like,
listen.
you can have as a Hollywood story, you survive the shooting, you put your fist up into the air, flag behind you. I'm like, yeah, it's a wrap. But he's
Listen,
managed to blow a lead. I don't know how.
I was in the UK a few weeks ago saying, it's over for us, like the
Mhm.
election is done. Because I mean, for a lot of people, there was literally no hope in terms, like, it
Yeah.
was like people had lost so much faith in Biden and the Biden administration. And there was this feeling that the election was done. And I think, I mean, I don't know why the Democratic Party was nervous about putting Kamala forth, or maybe they were worried she wouldn't get the votes, or like, I don't know exactly what the fears were, but
Mhm.
it's very clear that all of those fears were wrong.
Yeah.
People have so much hope now that she is standing up against Trump. And actually, I would argue that her rise kind of in the Democratic Party, and even her social media branding, picking Tim Walz, it's kind of outshined Trump a bit. Like
Yeah.
she, again, next to him, I don't know. She looks like this political star compared to him, who now looks like kind of a grumpy old white man. And
Mhm.
his VP pick with the couch, like, it's just all of these things now. They don't. I think Kamala was. I don't know, whatever fears that the Democratic Party had. It's clear that now the Democrats still have skin in the game.
Yeah, 100%. I think from an outsider perspective, it clearly looked like nobody was really happy with Trump v. Biden, even on both sides. Both of them were old. Trump looked youthful compared to Biden. But then now that you've swapped out Biden and you've got somebody who's 10 years younger, 15 years younger, however old she is, he just looks real
She's
old.
60 or she's 59.
She's 59, right? Yeah, black don't crack. Like, so she looks so youthful compared to him, energetic compared to him, even though she's probably only like maybe 15 years younger. And
But
go on, what are you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, you know what it is like in U.S. politics, they're always like people vote for who they want to have a beer with.
It's
And
vibes.
when you look at Kamala, like the memes about her, like she has a great blowout, she laughs all the time. She's someone you might want to get rosé with. Tim Waltz, it's given really big stepdad energy. Like, you would
Yeah.
go out to dinner with them. I don't know what a dinner with Trump and JD Vance would entail. Like, that would, like, do I want to get a beer with you? Do I want to sit down and talk to you?
Mm,
So, I mean, I think Kamala she just comes out like really energetic, and it's been vibing with people in a way that maybe she was criticized for as a VP, where they were like, what does she do? All she does is like nothing, just laugh all the time. But now people are like, yeah, actually, let's laugh. Like, I don't know, let's get some rosé. Let's go to brunch, And so the vibe, there definitely has been a vibe shift.
yeah, I think this election from the outside looks like it's just going to come down to white women, basically. Who did they side
It
with?
is.
Because like, I'm sure a lot of conservative white women end up just voting alongside their spouses. And if they can be persuaded, say like, listen, you didn't go for Hillary, but maybe this is now time for a woman to be president, that could tip the election over. And obviously at the same time, Trump and Vance are really weird around women's issue. Vance came out saying all this stuff about women not having kids, childless cat ladies. They already had the whole abortion thing. It's just weird. And I know that's the word that they've been using running the campaign with. And it was genius because it was like, yeah, that does sum it up. Because I was like, what is the vibe I'm getting from Trump and this guy? It's like, yeah, it's just, you guys are just weird, man. Like, what's wrong with you? So
That's
yeah,
what they've been calling everybody.
yeah, I know. They put the word on it. I think everyone was looking for it from the tip of their tongue of like, it's just not normal to be this obsessed about women's bodies and abortion and, you know what I mean? And who's childless and who's not. Like, give me a break. So just to do a quick detour then, in the UK, I know you're a bit of like Anglophile. You try to follow what's going on here. I actually thought that you lived in London for the first time, for the longest time, because
So
you're always
many
like,
people,
because
so
you're
many
always
people
tweeting
did.
British stuff. I was like, and it was beyond like I'm following UK Love Island. It was like the intricacies of UK politics and Parliament. I
Oh
was
yeah, I was in your business. People thought, I
like,
had so many people think I was British that when they heard I was American, they were like, "What is that accent?" And I was like, "No, this is where I'm from."
um, but yeah, luckily you're not from the UK because we've been having a horrible time this week. So we've had a whole bunch of like civil unrest, riots, all stemming from the tragic murder of 3 young girls who were killed. We didn't know who was the murderer. He apparently had stabbed them during some sort of Taylor Swift concert, or not concert, sorry, like a Taylor Swift dance class. All of a sudden now on social media, there was all these rumors that, oh my God, he was an illegal immigrant. He came on a boat. He was a Muslim. And that led to a lot of backlash where these right-wing nut jobs basically were going around essentially attacking mosques, trying to burn down hotels where asylum seekers were staying. And then there was even footage of just random Black people getting beaten up at these protests, random Asian people getting beaten up at these protests. And then there was rumors that they were going to come to London and there was going to be more kind of riots. Turned out that wasn't fake. That was fake. And there was a lot of anti-fascist protests, to go against that. But it's been a hell of a week. And I know, I saying this to you.
Tragic to see.
Yeah, I said this to you off mic, but like, we had people that, friends that I know were like, they were scared to go out. They were like, I don't know, as a person of color, should I really be going outside right now? And in 2024, that's an insane state of affairs. Has there been an American view on this? Just because my friend who lives in the States says she can't get any like good information about what's going on. She's originally from here, but she's moved to New York. She's like, I don't know what's going on. Fill me in. Are you guys just really focused on what's happening stateside? Has this made its way over there?
Well, you know how Americans are, where we don't focus on other people. So I mean, I saw maybe one tweet about it from an American, but it was not a good tweet. I think I sent it to my British friend, and I was like, "This is like," it was basically someone saying like, British people are so focused on Americans when things are just as bad over there. And I was like, if she knew anything about the landscape, like Black people in the UK, Black and a lot of Asian activists have always spoken about racism in the UK. That has not been something that's been hidden. And so, but I have not seen a lot of people talk. I mean, they've been cracking jokes. There's always jokes that are made about I don't know, the monarchy and the leadership. But I actually haven't seen too much like in-depth analysis on it. And I mean, I don't know why. But then again, I mean, yeah, I don't know why. As you said, I'm so deep into the British political scene that like, I don't know. I mean, there's some things that I just always knew, but I don't know how much of that translates outside of like that bubble. But I mean, it's been really, really sad to see. I know that I was talking to some of my friends over there about it, just saying like, like this is obviously stuff that these people have harbored for a really long time. Just
100%.
Even looking like at our right-wing activists or right-wing activists, girl, like our right-wing rioters. These are things that they just harbor for a long time, and they just look for that spark, like anything that will, let them go out and do this to people. And I think that when they were tracing it back, they said that it came from like a misinformation network, right? And I think they arrested the woman who initially shared the story.
Yeah, so she was the one that initially came out and said he must be an asylum seeker. He must be, a Muslim asylum seeker or from Syria. Just for the context for our US listeners, like those folks who are like fleeing war from Syria or Afghanistan or whatever, and they managed to make their way to the UK. These are like some of the most maligned people in our country. These people are basically now viewed as the cause of all of our problems. Maybe the way similarly you guys talk about the border. Oh, the border's open. It's like that, but our one is like these asylum seekers on boats. So people are, we've had people talk about shoot the boats, like all kinds of crazy stuff. So there's so much hatred against those people that when there was a rumor that they were responsible for potentially this tragic incident, it led these crazy people to just attack any Muslim they could see or and go crazy. Like, it's just insane.
There was an interesting tweet, and like I didn't know how to read it. A very prominent VC tweeted like, it's always hard to explain to Americans that the UK doesn't have basically our equivalent of the First Amendment.
Yeah,
and that was kind of the whole tweet. And I kind of didn't know how to read it because in the US, when we have hate speech, I'm like, hello, get them. Like, they're saying these things, but it's like, oh, you can't. First Amendment, like at my high school, when the students flew Confederate flags, we were told, well, they can fly that flag because they have the right to. And
Yeah.
in the UK, like seeing, I think Keir Starmer came out and said, like, you know, the social media, you don't have just like, you can't just say whatever you want on social media, right?
Yeah.
And seeing that, like, I didn't know how to read the VC's tweet. I was like, is he saying that it's a good thing that people can get arrested for hate speech over there? Or is it a bad thing? And so that's something that, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm actually probably one of the few people in the UK that probably looks like me and actually probably more admires the US perspective on it, because what happens here is that they tend to take those hate speech laws and then flip it on us as well. So don't get twisted. The majority of people who get prosecuted on hate speech laws are like, you know, white racists basically. But recently there was an example where this woman went to a protest and she had a placard that had coconuts on there and pictures of Rishi Sunak and other kind of prominent Southeast Asian of descent British politicians basically who are conservative. And she was saying, oh, coconuts. And they were falling, it was a picture of their faces on a coconut tree falling down, essentially saying brown on the outside, white on the inside. Now, if you're, you know, amongst other kind of POC black people, those are the kind of jokes that we might run. You might say that about Candace Owens, you might say that about whoever, whatever. She actually got prosecuted for that.
She was brown?
She was brown. Yeah, she was brown herself.
Yeah. Oh, wait. One of my friends showed me that, and I was telling her, I was like, if they brought that law to the US, the amount of slurs black people say against
This is what I'm saying. And then there was even an incident where there was a black girl that got done for saying the N-word on a tweet, basically. So the thing is, I do agree with the spirit of these laws, which is, yeah, like if you say something that's hate speech, where you're literally just saying nothing beyond just vitriol of like, I hate you, N-words, or I hate you, whatever racial slur you want to fill it in. Yeah, should that be looked into? I think so. But what tends to happen is people that apply these laws don't have the cultural understanding. So if another black person says the N-word with ending with an A and they're saying it to another black person, it's obviously not the same thing as a white person saying it, nor is someone saying, oh, you're a coconut. To me, that's a political statement saying that you are the brown face of white supremacy. We're not actually saying that you're not brown, obviously, but these laws end up getting weaponized against us. And then even, for example, with the Palestine, pro-Palestine marches that happen in London, a lot of times people are like, yo, this is a hate march, get them, basically. So it's a double-edged sword.
Something that I've been wanting to ask, or something I want to ask you, because I've been thinking about it all weekend, is how would you have liked to see, I guess, Keir's administration? Sorry, I don't know how you guys refer to your prime minister.
Yeah.
You just call his name. Okay. How would you have liked to see his administration or his leadership handle these riots? Because I was thinking, I was like, I don't know, he doesn't strike me as someone, especially after what happened with Diane Abbott, he doesn't strike me as someone who might really understand the intricacies of social issues or how to handle it. And so I was wanting to know, like, how would you have liked to see him and kind of his force and his administration handle this?
I think he's done an okay job. What he's done is told the courts to speed run for prosecution. So where it might have taken you a year, people are getting charged and facing like 36, 12, 2-3 year charges ASAP, basically. So in terms of getting the people that went to these marches and did violence, he's getting them. Where I probably don't like what he's doing is that, like, he hasn't been clear in the language. He's basically described them as, like, right-wing thugs, which they are. But he hasn't said, like, listen, these people are targeting Muslim communities. They're targeting, other Black and Asian people. Say, like, this is Islamophobic. This is racist. He's been very vague in terms of the language, because I still think deep down he doesn't want to alienate conservative Middle England, basically. So because a lot of people in this country agree with the perspective of those rioters, but won't go as far as rioting, if you get my drift, right? So a lot of people think too many immigrants, stop the boats, it's getting out of control, there's too many brown, Black people here, let's get rid of them, but don't have the guts to be violent about it. So he's kind of, I think, doing a balancing act where he's like, how do I speak to people's concerns without also, alienating them by basically accusing them of being racist, Islamophobic, whatever, right? So that I'll give him a D, but that's difficult because I think even if he did come out and was clear, he probably wouldn't last another term, basically, right? So that's the problem in it. So I give him credit for prosecuting these people real quick. And there's other areas where, like I said, I'm not too happy with it. But he's only been in power for like 2 weeks, basically, right?
I know, imagine 2 weeks
like,
in.
And like people are already using it as an excuse of, life under Labour, like it's not as good as it is under
life under Labour.
It's just, it's crazy.
A long-term issue? Do you see this as being a long-term issue with him, like in terms of like his handling of the increased racial tension in the UK?
I do think so, yes, because he has to keep a lot of different constituencies happy. Labour has a lot of votes amongst kind of POC, but at the same time, their historic heartland has always been like traditional white working class people as well. And a lot of those people are super anti-immigration. So how he managed to juggle that, like, I don't know. And there was a lot of policies that were put in before him that was meant to kind of curtail immigration. There was a plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda as a holding base and never let them back into the country. He kind of got rid of that plan because he was like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not legal or ethical. But a lot of his kind of right-wing supporters might have wanted that to continue. So listen, I don't envy the job. I think it's a fucked up job and I wouldn't want it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah.
Well, I want to say one thing. And that was, I was really disappointed to see how some of your media outlets were covering, because we do it also here in the US, where like, I think I saw one outlet call it like a pro-British rally and stuff like that.
Insane.
Like people were, the way that, I mean, in the US, we also, or they did it for a while, I think in the early days of like Black Lives Matter, where they didn't exactly know the right language to use to describe these things. And so it was really kind of disappointing, but not shocking to also see, you know, some people in the UK media also struggle in accurately describing what was happening.
Yeah, it's completely textbook example of Chomsky's kind of manufacturing consent. The press here has fostered racial hatred, especially like our kind of Daily Mail, like it's our number one like right-wing paper. They have a really successful website made online. Even Americans go on there, right? But their print paper here is just like the most racist shit you could ever imagine. And they have now tried to kind of slow walk it back. So when there was the anti-racist protest, they were like, oh, victory for the good guys. It's like, guys, you have spent the last 20 years, like, you know, making money, telling people that brown people were the problem. Like, and that's why your life is crap. So the press here has always been a disaster, honestly. And, you know, what they always do as well, they want to draw like a false equivalency with BLM, because we had like protests here as well because of that too. And they want to draw a false equivalency between people who are protesting racial injustice with people who are protesting to attack brown and black people. Like, make it make sense. You cannot try to make those equivalent, but they always want to play that game of down the middle, we're centrists, you know, we've got to see both sides. And it's like, well, one side wants to live in peace, the other side wants to get rid of people who don't look like them. Make it make sense. Anyways, I think we'll come into our last kind of like 5 to 10 minutes. In terms of where we can take it, there was a little minor stock market dip and it went down and everyone kind of panicked and speaking, oh my God, it's a recession. But listen, everyone, it's about time in the market, not timing the market. So I'm not a financial advisor, but anyone who's calling you saying, yo, bro, time to sell, please ignore them, because most likely you're better off just leaving your holdings and not panicking. And it looks like actually the tech stocks took a bit of a haircut. And I think even Buffett sold half of his Apple. So I think everyone started thinking, oh my God, but most likely tech has been overvalued for a very long time. And it was a necessary kind of haircut, right? What was TechCrunch's reporting on this whole kind of apparent fluctuation in the market?
We don't really do hardcore market coverage.
Interesting.
But I did follow it because I mean, everyone on tech Twitter was having a meltdown about it. And so I saw some things.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a dip in the market. I mean, I think I was texting one of my former boss and he was like, you know, the markets can stay, you know, I don't know, up and down longer than you can stay solvent or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, just, it was a dip in the market. And I mean, obviously economically over here, the American consumer is getting really, really crunched right now. And I think there are a little bit of fears for a recession. There are those fears, and it's because of just how tight things are for the American consumer right now. I mean, the interest rates are high, credit cards are high, groceries are high. Like all these things are just really expensive right now. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of fears of a recession, but this was just like this was a dip.
Yeah. I think tech has been overvalued for a long time, you know, and everyone's thinking that AI is going to be this magic panacea and all these valuations are going to make sense based on AI doing some magic stuff. And I don't think it can possibly justify it. But one thing, before we head off, I just want to give a quick shout out to my developers in the audience. So I've been using Cursor, which is a new kind of text editor, and they've got an integration with Claude, which is like another famous kind of AI tool. And as a developer, somebody who tries to code as much as I can while I still kind of do my CEO thing, it's been an absolute game changer. So if you are a developer, check out Cursor with their kind of Claude 3.5 Sonnet integration. It basically writes the code for you. That's the only way I can describe it. You just write in human language, build me a React app that does X, Y, and Z. It does it for you. You can tweak it, go and make some changes. And I built like a fun tool where it compares like African countries' GDP growth rates. And it took me like half an hour when that would have taken me like a week, because I would have been there struggling to figure it out. So Yeah, I mean, some people are saying that the computer science graduates are cooked. I don't know. I'm not gonna go that far. I just think learn to play with the tools and don't ignore it. Put your fingers in the air, hope that like, oh, just my job's safe. Because I think it's best to get acclimatized to the tools and make it work in your favor. As a journalist, though, has there been any fears that have manifested more now about AI, or is it kind of turned out to be a flash in the pan where most brands, media brands, still seem to be hiring folks? No one's pivoted and said we're going all in AI, right?
People are definitely, or media publishers are definitely preparing for a world in AI. They're striking content deals, they're rearranging newsrooms. Like, you definitely totally see it. I think a lot of people, we just have no idea what's going to go on with AI. I mean, you see all these media companies striking deals for the AI to be trained on its content. But does the money from that deal go down to the writer? Like, I think
Probably
there's
not.
a lot of I think there's a lot of labor issues that's going to come up from this. And I think that we're not even at the very beginning. We're about to enter. This is going to be a long, long thing.
And on that somber note, where can people find you? Where can people check out your Substack? Plug away.
Subscribe to my Substack called theblackcat.substack.com and follow me on Instagram, please.
Not an X, on Instagram.
Yes, at Dominic-Madori. Really, really simple. Please follow me on Instagram.